And good evening, everybody. Welcome to the June 1st Sustainability Advisory Commission meeting. Can folks hear me okay? Excellent. Great. So we will go ahead and call this meeting to order. And will Scott please call the roll?
James Corbin, Tomas Delgado, Madeline Garbaz.
Here.
Stacy Gloss.
Here.
Jessica Limcole.
Here.
Andrew Stump.
Here.
Morgan White.
Here.
Grace Wilkin.
Here.
Great. We have quorum. Scott, could you do a little mic check for me? I'm just not hearing any audio. Just say hello.
Hello, can you hear me?
Okay, I changed the setting and it worked.
Okay.
Okay, as part of your meeting packet for this evening, you should have received the minutes from the May meeting. Is there a motion to approve the minutes from the last SAC meeting?
So moved. I have one little edit.
Thanks, Morgan. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Grace. All right. Any edits or revisions?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Morgan.
It's just a typo in the property assessed clean energy paragraph. It says this arrangement garners better loan terms due to the secure nature, and it's the wrong due. It should be DUE. So DO.
Okay, we will note that. Any other changes for the minutes? Great, not hearing anybody. We'll have Scott call the roll for a roll call vote to approve the minutes from the May meeting.
Madeline Garbaz.
Yes.
Stacy Gloss.
Yes.
Jessica Limcole.
Yes.
Andrew Stump.
Yes.
Morgan White.
Yes.
Grace Wilkin.
Okay, thank you. All right, next on the agenda, are there any changes or additions to the agenda that anybody would like to make this evening? All right, we will move on from that. All right, it does look like we have one attendee in the attendees room. We have time for public input this evening. If an attendee would like to address the commission, they can go ahead and raise their hand through Zoom and we'll go ahead and call on them.
Hello, Commission. Can you hear me?
Yes, hello, Sarah.
Great. This is Sarah Nixon. Hi. I just super quick just wanted to mention that I'm working on collecting data, conducting interviews, and preparing a follow-up presentation that I would be grateful to be able to present to this commission. It's not quite ready for this evening, but if this is something that the commission is able to entertain, as I said, I'd be very grateful for the opportunity to share it with you, and I will be creating it as a Google Docs slide document. So once it is completed, I will be sending it to you. I actually did send out an email today to most of the commission members with a super quick update on this. I don't have everyone's email addresses. It looks like not everybody's email addresses are on the city website. So if you didn't receive the email, that's why. And I'll just wrap it up there, but I would be delighted to answer any questions or discuss further with you once my presentation is in presentable form. Thanks for your patience with this.
Thank you. I'm just going to ask a question because I don't think I received that today, Sarah. So if I can
Okay.
get your I don't necessarily want you to put your contact information sort of like out there on this call, but maybe somebody in the commission that received it can forward it to me.
Yeah, Stacy, it was sent to you. It was at 6:30, so.
Yeah, I can email. I can forward it to you if you want, though.
It wasn't too long ago, Stacy, so maybe you just didn't have a chance to get the updated inbox info. Yeah, it went out.
I see. Okay, that did go to my work address, and I haven't checked it since then. Okay, I will take a look at this. Thank you, and I can reach out to you offline with any questions that we have and discuss a future presentation. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Wonderful, thank you.
Stacey, maybe we could also ask Scott to send it to the whole commission to make sure everybody gets it. I'm not sure.
Yes, we can definitely do that. Okay, toggling back and forth on my screen. Back to the agenda tonight. It looks like staff report is up next. Scott?
Good evening. We've got some updates. Geothermal Urbana-Champaign has secured 12 contracts totaling 52 tons of capacity. So that gets us over our first price benchmark decline. And we've extended the sign up date through June. And so we've still got a number of proposals out there that are available. So hopefully we'll sign a few more contracts. Staff presented the countywide multi-jurisdictional hazard mitigation plan to City Council. That was approved by City Council last Monday, not yesterday, but the previous Monday. So we do have an approved, accepted hazard mitigation plan. We are moving forward. It just posted some advertising for our bulk rain barrel and compost bin sale. So that's something we do in collaboration with City of Champaign. And the rain barrels are $55 each with a $25 City of Urbana stormwater utility rebate. And the same is available in Champaign at $29. And that will be an all online, all delivery sale. So there'll be no in-person event. We had some public engagement recently. We're on a panel with our professional association, ICLEI, talking about our biodiversity work and the developing regional biodiversity plan with the university. It had an announcement that's stale now, but I think it was ready for you when this packet went out. We had an event with Geothermal UC, and I think that's going to be our last event. We're just signing up last of the contracts now. The next Sustainability Advisory Commission meeting would be July 6th at 7 p.m. I do anticipate that will be in person, but stay tuned. Not certain, but that's my anticipation.
Morgan has a question.
Minor, I just thought I'd pointed out there's a typo in this one under hazard mitigation plan. So Scott, I don't know if you can correct it, but it says multi-jurisdictional hard mitigation plan. Must have been difficult. Okay, I'm done.
I was also wondering about meetings going to in person, if there's any wiggle room for remote or hybrid stuff in the future, or if that's kind of like state mandated in person is in person, or if you have any more information on that.
So there's some requirements that the meetings be in person, and then folks. I think there's some language where if folks are traveling for work or something like that, it's acceptable to call in. I will look into that and I'll send a follow-up email to everybody, just laying out what all the rules are.
Thank you.
Great. Other questions? So, sorry, just going back to the geothermal really quick. It looked like the deadline for signing contracts was May 30th. I'm sorry, did you say that that was pushed back just a little bit for signing contracts, or is that program now complete?
I think we did extend it. Let me check the website and see if it's posted there. Yeah, it still says deadline May 30, but I think we were extending it. I'll follow up with an email with you all on that.
Could you tell us the website again real slowly? Because I'm still...
Geothermaluc.org.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, and then I do have a question about the rain barrel and compost bin sale. I know that it's with an outside vendor and that we're doing this with Champagne and Urbana. I am curious if we have any programming, like demonstration programming that helps people set it up or anything like that, receives education about how to like properly set up their rain barrels, or any deeper education around like what happens if you want to buy a bunch of them and string them together. What are some best practices that we could point to folks that for some resources? So
for the last 2 years, U-Cycle and the Parks District, Urbana Park District have conducted a rain barrel, a compost bin education class, but I don't think that rain barrels have been involved in that. The vendors pursuant to the RFP are required to provide instructions for setting up the products to all the purchasers. And then Extension Service has quite a bit of information on their websites about it. I don't know whether they're doing some other programming around that or not. Okay, I'd like to check that out and then post some of that information, maybe alongside with the sale information that goes on the website. And if anybody wants to do a what not to do, then I'm probably happy to donate some rain barrels. Possibly. And then also, were there any discussions with Urbana and Champagne about assisting in sort of the upfront costs, or making the upfront cost more affordable for any households that might be really interested in having a rain barrel, but the $55 upfront may be a hurdle for them? Well, we do that in 2 ways: the bulk purchase nature and the RFP nature of this program takes what's usually $100 retail product and cuts it almost in half. And then we also have the stormwater utility rebate, which takes almost another quarter of what is typically retail out of the price. So you're talking about a $30 rain barrel instead of $100 at the store. Okay, and then is there information on the website as well about how to apply for that rebate? We actually work with the vendor to provide the rebate at the point of purchase. So an Urbana resident is paying $30. We will then verify that they qualify for the rebate before the product is delivered. If they do, then nothing more is done. If it turns out that they don't live in the city, for instance, then the vendor will work with them to either cancel the sale or collect the balance.
Okay, thank you for answering the bulk of my questions on that. Any other questions from members of the commission? All right, the next agenda item that we have tonight is to continue our discussion of justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion. I am going to turn that over to anyone on the commission that has any information that was updated or further prepared for tonight.
Take a stab at it.
Thanks, Grace.
I think a good place to start would be maybe following up on our action items from the last month. And I know if Jess, you and Tiger had a chance to talk, if you want to share. I did talk to some people with the comprehensive plan, Andrea and Lily. Did you have any things you wanted to follow up for you and Tiger's end?
Yeah, so not a ton to report yet, but we did make the steps forward. Morgan hooked us up with Meredith from the U of I, the IC group. And we spoke today about like what, reaching out to her, and we have a time set up for next week. So that's pretty much the gist. If you have anything specific that you would like us to ask, it would be great to share that now, but we were pretty much just planning on kind of getting some ideas about what their goals are, what they're kind of all about, and then just any needs and challenges that they're facing.
If I could, one of the main things to ask about, so we get that connection from what the U of I is doing to what the city of Urbana is doing, planning, is the question regarding their summer support for environmental justice conversations. So just as a reminder for all of us, there's an intern at the U of I working with Meredith to actually reach out to several groups around, I don't know if it's around campus or around campus and the community. I think it's the whole community, but I don't know the details. And then the question of, if they're going, could someone from our group participate, or could we, do they have certain questions? Could we add questions? Things like that. So what is their process, and how can we, piggyback on it, increase efficiency?
We will make sure that happens. Thank you.
Do you know, Jess, is that meeting, I guess it's a little bit of a getting to know you meeting, but I was wondering if that meeting is going to include the intern, the student intern as well, and if it sort of is a two-way conversation, because I know that, Morgan, please correct me, but there's like a climate action team that is working on resilience, and that there is a specific call to action around creating a plan for environmental justice for our community. And so I'm wondering if the meeting just that you're setting up is also similar, or not similar, but kind of a two-way interview, or just a very introductory introduction, and then to look forward to the interns at a later time, maybe coming back to the SAC to interview members of the SAC, or giving a presentation at an SAC meeting about their goals, their objectives, and what they're trying to achieve in their planning efforts.
So she had sent us 2 dates, and we had, James and I had chosen a date, and I was going to respond to her, like choosing next Monday. So I'm sure I can throw out like, please invite your intern, and maybe we can talk about ways that you can connect further with SAC in the future. So I think it's something very informal at this point, but can throw out those ideas certainly when we meet with her next Monday.
Great, thank you. All right, Grace, do you want to report back on the meeting that you had about the comprehensive planning process?
Yes, Scott and I met with Andrea and Lily, who are leading the comprehensive plan stuff. They're working with trusted community partners currently for phase 1, and sounds like they've been going out to the community, making lots of connections and getting feedback. So this phase 1 is preliminary information that they hope to be done by the fall-ish sometime. And they said that for phase 2, where they'll take a deeper dive and kind of incorporate more subject matter experts, and that would be a really great time for us to get involved. And they definitely sounded, interested and down for the idea of, co-hosting a listening session that's maybe the SAC and comprehensive plan that's focused on sustainability kind of topic. And we could co-host kind of listening sessions, or when they add those more specific survey questions, then they said that would be a time to kind of talk with us also about adding those. So looking at my notes here, because that was a while ago, they said SAC members can also, we can, get involved in the meantime if we'd like to, just individually, can volunteer, attend the listening sessions, participate on the Imagine Urbana and read other comments and things there. They said that it is too early to give kind of a feel for what they've gathered so far, because they haven't hit all of the groups that they want to be fully representative. And again, that this is phase 1, more preliminary broad net, and then they're going to take that and focus it a little more. So they said they'd be happy to come to an SAC meeting, and we could kind of talk about some shared goals and how to collaborate more specifically. This meeting was already, kind of full with the annual report and stuff we're working on. So we were thinking maybe the next one, July-ish, or, whenever, August too, but probably sometime before they start diving into phase 2, so that we can have that first conversation before they get there when they're making those plans. And that's all.
Sounds good. Thank you for doing that. And thank you for to you, Grace, and to Scott for meeting with the folks at the city about working together on that. You had mentioned the possibility of sort of having members of the SAC volunteer in the listening sessions. Was there anything further fleshed out about that and what volunteering might look like, or what the time commitment might be, and kind of what they're looking for this summer?
I don't know. I'd say that'd be a great question to contact them directly. Andrea Rudy, right? And Lily, something with a W, Wyckoff.
Cool.
And they think they're probably all over the website for who to contact with the comprehensive plan, all their contact stuff. And so, yeah, I think it would be attending listening sessions, just kind of as a member of the public and on SAC, and volunteering, I think, might be some in-person stuff, like attending different events or listening sessions. It sounds like they've been trying to go out to, other places and make those kind of community connections. So yeah, I'd recommend to contact them directly.
Great. In terms of the goal items that we were discussing in the last meeting, Grace, do you or Morgan have that readily available to do a screen share?
Oh yeah, I can. Give me just a second. And I haven't done much with these goals in particular. I don't know if other people have had time to mold them over or add to them. Can also make this like more of a live document-ish. Can we do that
No,
together? No, we can't.
I
But
know.
share it with one at a time. Different copies. If anyone wants to like type around on it, I could share a version for you to type around on or something. I think I can do that. So here's this. Do you want this one?
Yep. So we've got probably about 10 more minutes just to spend in conversation together around some of these goals. And so I take it, so these are, actual goals and, so it's a question. These are actual goals and objectives, or these were sort of samples put in based on what you had thought?
I'm not muted, am I?
No.
Sorry. I can't tell when I'm screen sharing. I couldn't unmute myself because I'm not muted. These are taken from the 4 main ideas that we had come up with from our brainstorming that Morgan and I had organized. So that's the 4 main categories. And yes, the goals and objectives and measures are taken kind of, adapted to that specific category, and also some tailored from the literature.
Okay.
And I tried to make an action step page. Is that on the same slideshow, Grace? I think it might be those middle text heavy ones, or it might be one of the end ones. That one. So these were things that when we did the brainstorming in the commission meeting, these were the green bullet points are items that multiple people said in different ways, or I saw them as being similar to each other from different ways people were saying things. And I was looking at what were things that we could actually take an action on the next. So I wonder if we could just talk through these as something for the next few minutes, unless there's something else that we need to discuss. I can keep going. The first one here is asking Scott to give us, to put it in his to-do list, which I'm sure is very long, could include to give us a review of what are the current ways that we can communicate. What's the communication methods we currently use for city sustainability? I'm familiar with some. I don't know if I know all of them. And then,
do you mean by like disseminating information out to the community so communications from the city, or do you mean intra communications, like between SAC members and the public?
both.
Okay.
Yeah, co-communication. And the question of what's out there and how you go. So sometimes there's a pathway that is used occasionally that we could just strengthen. Sometimes it's just nice to see, like, what are we doing now, so we can look at how do we, where the gaps are and what to do about it. So that would be asking Scott to put together a summary to share at a future SAC meeting. And then following up with that, asking the commission members to each suggest additional, I wrote in 3, but additional ways to spread information, just to sort of grow that particular thing about publicizing resources. And then the third part in that was, and these are from, well, they're not all from our brainstorming session. Some of them were thought up when Grace and I were talking later. But to look into collaborations with the library, maybe do a sustainability week kind of thing.
So I want to get into sort of like a processy kind of question, and that is, are these items that we want to propose as a commission to do? And I don't know, like, the level of, like, so, if this is, Morgan is proposing to ask Scott to provide a review of current communications for a future meeting, and then for us to say, okay, yeah, together we make a decision and says, yeah, we should do that. Together we agree on this. And then Morgan would just follow up with that and ask, or are we at the point where we're saying, okay, yeah, let's move forward with some of these. These look pretty good. So let's just say it's here, it's written down. So just because it's number one on the list, okay, Scott, can you do this? So there's a little bit of like a process question, which is, do we want to discuss each one of these action items as potential action items for us to take? Or is this like, we feel like we pretty much settled on this. Let's do some of these together and move through some of these.
No, I
How do
think
you
we
all
need-
feel about
I thi-
that?
I think we still need to discuss them to make sure that there's not something in here that someone thinks is a bad idea or that is glaringly missing something. I think it's important for us to discuss them. I also, these are not in any order. So having like going through all of them before we choose something to move forward with makes sense to me. And then the last thing is, these were the things that seemed like actionable stuff that we can do when, if we all agree and we choose what priorities given the limited resources, like then we can move forward with any of these, but they're not the only things. And so we have to not lose sight of the broader picture, the bigger piece. Okay, I'll be quiet while you get other feedback.
I will. Yeah. Does anyone else want to say or contribute anything for right now?
I would like to make sure that we kind of have a well thought out approach to what items and goals we do. And as I've been saying, I would like to have like a measure for each thing, you know, either it's like we did this thing or we didn't, you know, like even if it's that simple, but I'd like to see kind of like an action item and the how we're going to measure it, and also having a time goal with it. And I'd like to incorporate those, you know, 4 main areas that we had all kind of brainstormed on. So yeah, it doesn't have to be, you know, that table or any particular system, but I would like it to be in some ways fitting into that format where we consider the bigger picture and how we're going to actually do and measure these things.
So it seems like, just because I'm looking at like the 2 different things and they seem like maybe they're a little bit different. I don't know where the overlap is. It seems like there are some different actions and action items or to-dos on this list that don't appear in the table itself. And so what I'm wondering is if Grace and or Morgan, if you would spend some time between now and the next meeting, taking what's on this current page that's kind of just text-based and moving that into some sort of a table that we could use for sort of some project management tracking, if that wouldn't be terribly difficult. I really like that idea. I like the idea of adding in dates, specifically like a date column on this, and moving the goals that were on the sort of like outlining page that Morgan put together and add those under city outreach, community engagement, and accessibility, wherever those are included. So that's sort of like one area. The other then is figuring out how to, you know, what we've got, like the Roberts rules thing where we sort of sit and we can discuss each one and kind of like discuss the merits, and then decide which actions we want to take together based on that, if that's you know, one method. Are there any other kind of ideas or process planning kind of decision-making structures that anybody has experience with that they want to kind of use for decisioning, making some decisions around like, all right, what are the actions that we think that are within our purview and that we could move forward?
I like the idea of adding those to the table. Just wanted to highlight that a few of them are on there, like the comprehensive plan going under community listening and community engagement. Meeting with NTD, I had here under city operations. But yeah, I would definitely, I think it would be helpful to add the other pieces of it, because I'm not sure where some of those fit into the picture and how to measure them or what's the goal or objective there behind it. I mean, hospitable stops, I think, being the thing. So that would be more of the objective. But anyway, yeah, I think that's a good idea.
Right,
to
exactly.
Put them
Okay.
into an organized kind of format that everyone can have some time to have input and thoughts on.
And that might be nice in, I'm sorry to ask somebody to create like another Excel document. I don't have any other project management sort of software for tracking items other than Excel. So if there's another creative, collaborative way to do that where we could work on that together in a meeting, that would not be, ooh. Hey, Scott, can we collaboratively work on like a Google Excel deck in a meeting? I know it's a little bit boring, right? But like, we could do that.
I mean, like we did
And
with
that
the-
Excel doc could be being shared in real time.
Yeah.
So people could see it.
Yeah, I think if you're sharing it and typing in it, that sounds fine.
Okay, so there's that. So either like a Google Excel, or there's a new Google whiteboarding program that might also fit into for like collaborative work where everybody could be working on a document all together. Does anyone remember what that's called?
Called Jamboard, and it's really nice for collaborating. Basically, like, well, one way that I've used a lot, like kind of post-it note, kind of putting ideas around a concept, and then everyone kind of, working together, adding ideas. You can also set it up so that it looks more like a Google Sheets, and then people can be adding in information in that same way. You could have multiple ideas on top of one area and then choose the one that's the best, or, choose the date to go with, or so. I don't know. I would be willing to meet with someone this month and start kind of putting this stuff together in Jamboard if we want to use that, or Google Sheets, since I know Grace and Morgan have already done a lot of work on this. I agree with Morgan that, and like all of you, that we need to take some time and decide like what we're actually doing. I feel like this is a brainstorm turned into a list. And are these the things that we want to actually do? Are there things that have come up that like, oh, we want to do this thing now, So if that makes sense. I don't know. Jamboard is a good way of also like voting on like, this is the priority, or it could be, So.
So how does that sound? Grace, I don't know how much volunteer time that you have, and Morgan, how much volunteer time that you have to kind of work on it this month, but I'm thinking about if the kind of Excel looking document that's currently in the PowerPoint could be combined with kind of Morgan's list from that brainstorm, distilling those topics down and then getting that into a Jamboard. I like that. I've used it. I've introduced myself to it to just see kind of how it works. I like it with the sticky notes and things like that. To put it in that format, we would have to have like one person.
No, if it needs more than one person, like if we just give Grace the PowerPoint, which already has the file that Grace was just showing us and the text that I was reading out loud here. I mean, I don't know that it needs a partnership, is what I'm saying.
Right. I'm just wondering who
Yeah,
can
I
put
mean-
those two together so they look kind of like an Excel, and then just maybe hand that off to Jess to
No,
take
I'm
exactly that
I'm
information.
suggesting that
Uh-huh.
Jess put it together. Like we give her what we have
Uh-huh.
into Excel, Jamboard,
Just
whatever.
basically using that slide that had the list and then the slide that's like a chart, and combining that into a Jamboard that could be, some collaborative space to kind of prioritize and decide action steps. Is that kind of what we're thinking? This is my only concern. So I was thinking that for some reason, I was thinking our July meeting would get moved. And if it's in person, I'm going to be on family vacation the week of that, the 6th. we're going to be in Tennessee. I don't know what that looks like, but I would gladly still do the Jamboard even. I didn't know. I don't know. I was thinking for some reason that was going to get moved for the holiday week, but that's.
Well, that would also make our remote working different too if we're in person. Like our
That's true.
collaborative
Everybody would have to
one.
bring their own laptop
Yeah,
and
I
then
think, yeah, I
be
think
on
we
the
take
internet.
the slide of Morgan's ideas and put it in the table. I have already given it an attempt, so I'd say my interpretation of it is done. I think it would be helpful for Morgan for you to do it since they're your ideas and you kind of know where you're coming from with them. But if you want other people to take a stab at it, that's fine. I've given it a try. That's about as far as I've gotten. And I think also to keep in mind that we did all brainstorm on these ideas too, so we can go back to the original sources in that PowerPoint also, where we have everyone's ideas and action items and goals and stuff in there as well. So I think we can take all of those ideas and put them in there. I don't think it has to be just that one slide of one person's things.
Was the PowerPoint shared already publicly as part of like a meeting packet?
The first part with the research and the brainstorming and stuff was everything except the few recent stuff like the table was in the packet a while ago.
Okay. Do we want that to become a public facing document from this meeting today so that that PowerPoint ends up being shared on the website? I'm trying to figure out how not to create more work, but also like not. It's something that we all want to work on sort of together. There are obviously different people with different perspectives. And that is important that we capture that. Maybe send me the PowerPoint. I'm also wondering, I know it's kind of a long PowerPoint, so I'm wondering about taking out certain slides from it. Just the slides like from the brainstorm and the table and then what Morgan wrote up and kind of just like distill that out kind of separately. I would almost publish all the background information as a PowerPoint. That was all of the research that was done because it's sort of like informing perspectives and it's also like cool public info if we can share it. But take those like 3 slides or 4 slides out and then just share those with Jess, get those into a Jamboard, and then we can all review that information together on a Jamboard at the next meeting. And I haven't said it yet, but I do think that we probably, and I can get there, but we probably should take a vote on whether or not we want to cancel or move the July meeting. If folks want to break and just reconvene, but like we're not there in that discussion yet.
So just real quick on the Jamboard. So our goal would be to have all of the goals in one space and basically vote on or choose what are the priorities, what are things maybe we don't want to do anymore or a space to add, or is it not like that loose? What are our actual goals of using the Jamboard? What do we want to come out of the collaboration? Do we want to know like what steps we're taking, what goals we're achieving, what steps we're taking, and who's volunteering for those steps? Does that seem pretty reasonable, or am I missing something that we think is vital to the collaborative experience?
Goals.
Andy and Maddie, you've both been quiet during the conversation. Maddie, what are you thinking about with all this stuff?
I mean, I've just been quiet because I mean, everybody's addressing everything that I'm thinking of. There's nothing that I feel like hasn't been addressed. You know, that's all.
Okay.
Well, I was going to say
Andy.
the one in food deserts, we've already kind of started that one topic. Because I think Scott has a map of the food deserts. So we could, that part would just be giving our recommendations for how to solve those issues, I guess. If that's what was on that was what was listed on that, on Morgan's list.
Yep.
So if that's something people wanted to do, we could finish that first, I guess, but I like the idea of having the board so we can rank or prioritize which ones we want to work on.
Mhm.
And maybe we get ranked and then we decide something else new comes along and we want to interject that in the ranked order. So
And you got me thinking about kind of organizing things by what we're currently working on, because there are little moving parts that are happening. What we need to do next, and what are kind of more we need to just majorly push this off because there's no time or manpower or whatever, woman power, human power,
Long-term.
Oh.
goal, maybe.
people power.
Yeah, definitely. And the gem board, we could even maybe Jess, you could create it in a way so that like, I think you can create like multiple jam boards in the same jam board. Like you have new Google Sheets or whatever in the same spreadsheet. And so if we did that, then it could be sort of like with a heading, what do we want to accomplish between now and December of 2021? What are some good 2022 things? If that feels like a 2022, and what are the things that feel more long-term in scope? In which case I do think, and I don't remember kind of seeing it, it's just not in front of me, adding in the involvement in the comprehensive planning process and kind of just keeping an eye on that and how we show up kind of as SAC and individuals to the comprehensive planning process. Seems like one of these short-term goals between now and the end of 2021 to make sure that sustainability has a voice in the comprehensive plan, as well as the diversity, equity, and inclusion and justice reaching into that as well.
And that's one of the 3 on my list.
Great. Okay.
So just to circle back to what Grace, you had said that you put them into the table format to your, what you said, I think it was to the best of your ability or some phrase like that. So how about I am available for like a 1-hour call with Jess during this next month. We could, maybe Jess, if Grace sends it to you or however we're allowed to do that handoff, we need to get it to Jess, right? So you get the
It's already been published like on the packet and stuff too, right? So I mean, there's no reason I can't send that, and I can send it to you guys to work on, and we've talked about it all together, right? See any problem.
And then if you take a look at it, Jess, then once you've gone through, if you have questions or whatever, reach out and we can have a phone call. And so we'll be the 2 commissioners who could potentially be talking about this particular topic over the next year between commission meetings. That's the thing, is you can only have 2 on their own at a time.
All right. Grace, if you could just send the most recent version that you have, if you had some extra notes on it from today, please send that most recent version to Scott. Scott and I will have a conversation offline about what in the space is constituting like SAC business and SAC conversations. And then in a medium term sense, after we get a little bit further down the road with some of the deciding around some of our priorities and Jamboard sessions, I think that there's probably a good argument to be had for me to reach out to the mayor and say that these are the things that we're really interested in at SAC and the type of things that we want to be working on together, and have a conversation about what that looks like. I think bringing the mayor into that conversation is kind of important. Otherwise, it's just like the work that we're trying to accomplish as SAC and creating really awesome plans, but it would be happening a little bit outside of city council and outside of kind of the city's administration. So I probably want to have that discussion, and I'll talk further with Scott about sort of what's in scope and what's out of scope in terms of like, are there any lanes that we need to be aware of with regard to the work? But thank you for this conversation. Thank you for focusing it a little bit more on the process and trying to focus it on helping us get a little bit further in furthering our goals together. Any other questions or thoughts on this topic?
Yeah,
So I
Stacy.
just I would like to just clarify what I'm exactly doing, just to make sure. So I'm taking original brainstorm, Grace's chart, Morgan's list, turning it into a Jamboard that we can collaborate on around what our goals, what goals we're prioritizing, our action steps, and who's volunteering for what and when, right?
Yes. Hello. Oh my gosh, what a wonderful shirt.
I was
He
going to
came
ask,
back for the occasion, but he's just starting to melt a little bit. This is Floyd. Okay. Bringing a little liveliness here to this convo and being quiet now, so that's good. Okay. Thank you.
I was going to ask whether Jess's meeting next week would inform either what we do or what they do.
Don't we feel like that's one of the goals, like that is also, that's something that we're kind of doing now.
Yeah.
Reaching out for comprehensive planning, reaching out to IC and seeing how we can support. And I agree, Andrew, that that's also could be a space that informs what we prioritize.
Yeah.
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 For sure.
Awesome. Thanks, Sue All right. Scott, you are up next with the annual report.
Oh, we had a quick thing about food waste diversion on there first.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry about that. Food waste diversion.
Pull this up. I just want to do a quick update on the flyer and some things. I'm excited for Sarah Nixon's research that hopefully we'll be getting to hear about soon for food waste for animal feed in particular. So this is the separate but hopefully partnered project, if everything works out, for food scrap composting at the Landscape Recycling Center. And this is just an update on the flyer with some feedback from Scott and other environmental activist groups and things. So we just changed food waste to food scrap, said we're taking participants, a few things from Morgan, change it to a clear background. I think I can only make it red, that part. Oh no, I changed some. This is the back with some more stuff, just included a little more specific stuff about pre-consumer back of house food scraps and about the benefits and Scott's contact information. And he's offered to be able to print those out and then need to just distribute them. So I guess just kind of a last check too, and I can send you these so you can look more closely if you'd like for some other feedback before this goes out, if you'd like to.
Go back to the first page, please. So is there no cost to them?
That's not clear yet. There's a lot of moving pieces. It seems like there probably will be some cost.
I think that the second line where it says all you have to do is separate them and we'll come get them to indicate something about maybe participation costs are not yet determined or something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's a complicated bit where I feel like it all depends on something else. So we're trying to figure out all these dependent things without having all of the pieces.
Right. I have an idea. So in the first line, what really made me think of that was the all you have to do. So maybe we just say participants simply separate their pre-consumer waste. You know what I mean? Because so that it's like, so we're not saying there's nothing else, which is what I was reading is all you have to do.
Yeah. Yeah, because the hauler is asking, like, well, how many participants will we have and what volume? And so they can figure out the cost. And it's kind of like, that's all negotiable-ish, it's all in the planning phase. Because then, yeah, the clients are asking, well, how much is this going to cost? What are they going to pick up? Who can participate? And so there's lots of moving pieces all just to put together. But I did say that I think it would make sense to do whatever makes sense for the hauler now too. So they can even set that if they have an ideal thing, like however many cubic yards is one truckload. And so that's be this many businesses. We can definitely set it for what works best to get the lowest cost for the customers and the most efficient for the hauler in the LRC, of course. Thank you. Any other immediate thoughts or questions, input?
I like the graphics and I think it looks really nice. Lots of good info on there.
Thank you.
Is it going to be a city program? Like, should it have a city logo on it?
No.
No? Okay.
No, Scott has been generous. Scott and Courtney and them have been generous in supporting this project, but it is not an official city contribution besides their generosity with their time, and the LRC being a separate financial entity and the private hauler and the private businesses. And I think the city is also very clear that this is not their project because it's not something that they're going to spend, $700,000 a year on like U-Cycle. This is something that, a little staff time is reasonable, but they are not sponsoring and doing this full project, I think, at this point.
All right. Any other questions? Okay, thanks, Grace. Sorry for skipping over you there. Scott, go ahead with the annual report.
Thanks. And I think that was all well put, Grace. The annual report was drafted so long ago, I hardly remember. You all have received it. I did receive a few questions and I could run through those real quick and provide some responses if that sounds like a good way forward.
Sounds good to me.
Okay. So a question, any idea why composting volumes are decreasing? We did have a decrease in LRC material throughput when City of Champaign started taking their leaves elsewhere. So we lost a lot of volume that goes to our screen garden compost. Other causes, I don't know. Does the city need to run more yard waste pickups? Residents would probably like that. Yard waste pickups or leaf pickup is what we provide, bagged leaf pickup. Were reduced several years ago for budgetary reasons, and I don't anticipate funding to be able to increase those in any time. Curbside bagged leaf collection is paid for by the U-Cycle fee, and so any increase in that service would require increase in that fee. Currently we're just trying to keep the fee apace with inflation. This take into account material dropped off by landscaping companies and the public. Yes, that's all. Everybody who tips at the LRC is tallied up. Could you compare with other cities if data is available? The recycling coordinator, Courtney Kwong, has been looking into that, but not finding a good apples to apples city to compare to. So it's always nice to do that, but we just haven't found a good example yet. If anybody else has ideas, we'd be happy to look into what you might have found. Geothermal system use the natural thermal energy in the earth for heating. Okay, I think that was just better language being proposed. Is there a different way of presenting the data? It seems like all the landfill waste has a nearly constant weight. So unclear if there is less landfilled waste. Recycled material is definitely increasing, but items are often lighter. So yeah, it says that, the issue of do you go by volume or weight is tricky, but it also is dependent on the data that you have. So we tend to start with one and then I think convert to the other. And it is volume that limits landfill space. Yes, but we're not really limited on landfill space. I think there's actually a lot of capacity in central Illinois. So I'm not sure that's as much of a concern as being efficient with our materials and getting the hazards out of the landfill and into a proper hazardous waste management stream. If there was no significant change in one-time battery use since 2017, would suggest people are recycling batteries less often and going into the trash. Or what I hope is that people are using more rechargeables, and so that they're using the same battery over and over and over again, while it will still hold a good recharge. So it's hard to say exactly what the cause is there. We also encourage rechargeables because some of those batteries we actually get paid to recycle. We always pay. There's flat fees, delivery, transportation, materials that we're always going to pay, and then there's per unit fees, some of which we get paid, some of we pay out. Single-use alkaline batteries we pay out to recycle, but some of the other battery chemistries on a per unit basis we actually get paid a small amount, and kind of counterbalances the single-use alkaline. So there's multiple reasons to encourage folks to use the rechargeables. Those are some of the questions I had received. Happy to expand upon those or take any others.
Some questions on your question answers, which were wonderful. Thank you. I love the report. Lots of questions that were answered within that too. But I was wondering if you have a sense if Champaign is going to continue to take their leaf waste elsewhere, or if they're coming back to the LRC anytime.
I don't have any anticipation for them to start bringing their leaves to the LRC again. My understanding is that they have a lower cost disposal option.
Second random thought question to think about too, if that impacts maybe with our 10% food waste, if the volume is like impacted enough overall. Do you think it's enough of a volume impact with that?
No, at some point we'll have to do that calculation again, but my recollection was years ago when we made the permit change that we didn't think that we were ever going to get close to meeting that limit.
I was wondering also if you had a sense for the cause between some of the wonderful decreases in like water and energy consumption, or maybe it wasn't consumption, emissions. I'm guessing maybe that's when we changed to the municipal aggregate. Is that
yes? So that big drop in carbon pollution emissions is primarily from the purchase of renewable energy credits with our municipal electric aggregation program.
And do you have a sense for water, especially the public sector? It looks like was one of the biggest water decreases.
So it's hard to say because that public sector is any public entity, not just the city in Urbana. The city did have, just looking at its own water consumption, had a substantial drop in water consumption probably 6 or 7 years ago. Two things were done. One, better maintenance and better technology controls on our irrigation systems. And two, we converted a server room cooling system, which used water one time passed through and then disposed for cooling. We switched that to electric cooling. So that water consumption was completely eliminated. So the city itself had a dramatic decrease. That probably doesn't account for all the municipal. So I'm not sure what other agencies are doing. All the sectors have kind of a general decline. And I think that, to me, that just looks like gradual technology adoption, low flow devices. As the old ones are swapped out, the newer ones are more efficient.
I think the university is included in part of the public sector water consumption, and there's been a significant work on campus to reduce water use. at the centralized area. We've done a lot of bathroom retrofits to low flow fixtures, which is a small contribution. We've also done similar to what Scott was talking about with those once through cooling. We're trying to find any of those and replace them with alternate solutions. And we've also done a lot with centralized cooling. So the district chilled water loop uses less water as a whole than individual cooling towers, which used to be all across campus. And the other thing is energy conservation for on campus has a big reduction in water use. So all of our energy efficiency improvements have also driven down water consumption on campus. We went from, just a number, we went from about 1.1 million gallons a year in 16 down to 7.7 instead of 1.1 million gallons in 20. So that's probably a major contributor.
I was wondering if, Scott, if you could also explain this graph about the municipal electric aggregation savings. I was just kind of confused with the savings and the negative savings, and just kind of orient us to that figure a bit.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So when we have negative savings, that's when our price as compared to the Ameren price to compare is higher. And so, that's happened from time to time. We sign 2 and 3 year contracts based on expectations of what the market and the Ameren prices are going to be. And sometimes we are more higher than those prices for some period of time.
Okay, so compared to Ameren price is the savings, our municipal aggregate compared to Ameren market price.
Exactly. So it's called the price to compare. It's Ameren's published price. They, I believe they update it every year, and these days they have a summer and a non-summer price, as well as separate prices for at certain usage thresholds, and they update that once a year.
I have a question on the municipal aggregation program, if I could, right there. It's just not clear to me. Is the new contract that it takes, this says, I guess this is old. It says the city's new electricity supply rate taking effect December 2020 is 20% lower than the previous contracted price. Is that still municipal aggregation, and is it still 100% renewable?
Yes and yes.
Okay. Good.
Yeah, I can clarify that that's not city facilities, but the municipal electric aggregation program. Yeah, so our price that that we're in now is substantially lower than what it was previously.
You mentioned the hazardous waste, and there's lots of groups working on that. I don't know if Scott, if you had other things to chime in about hazardous waste outlook, just kind of that there's not a centralized, drop off here. There's no consistent drop off for most things. And if you had a sense that a lot of that stuff was landfilled, or maybe people are taking it places or holding off for the once a year events, just kind of, I don't know if you could share some insight from your perspective about hazardous waste.
I would like to say that everybody goes years upon years holding their household hazardous waste in the garage, but probably some of it ends up in the landfill where we don't want it. So it's important to have, at least every year or every 2 years, a household hazardous waste collection event. It's better to have a permanent drop-off facility that might be open some number of days a week. Courtney did just let me know she got back some data for our recent event, and we'll be compiling that, and we'll share it. But what I remember from her email is that the state paid $100,000 in disposal costs for that one-day event, and so that I don't think that includes other ancillary costs that the local municipalities pay, for arranging the event and so forth. So I think that's just the disposal cost. So it's quite costly, but it's quite important. So if I recall correctly, I think what Courtney's expressed is that the state has said that they anticipate a collection event every year here. If that happens, that would be quite good. I would hope that at some point, there's maybe a backlog. I don't know that our community's throughputing $100,000 worth of hazardous waste every single year. I suspect some of that is backlog. We haven't had an event in a few years. So it'd be interesting to see what the volumes are if we have one event every year for several years, see if they start going down. But it's quite important because I think, in terms of potential for harm, that's the waste stream that has probably the greatest potential for harm.
Yeah, love to see something closer. I know that's a big long-term goal, but a facility here, because I don't know if there aren't any downstate, or there's maybe 3 in the state, 2 in Chicago area, maybe 1 way south, but I mean, nowhere within a 2-hour drive from here where you could just drop off your old paint or batteries or aerosols and all these other things that aren't properly disposed of, or just hoarded in garages, which is definitely a thing, but it's great not to.
Yeah, I mean, after a while, these chemicals degrade, react. I mean, it's not good to keep them in a garage or basement year upon year either. So we want to, once they're done, we want to throughput them back into some proper recycling or disposal stream. I don't know of any downstate facilities. And then even if there was a distant facility, they're often taxpayer funded, local tax funded. And so they're not necessarily open to folks who are not within that taxing district. So it's important to get options that are, available to all residents within a reasonable drive throughout the state. So we'll see what the state of Illinois is able to do in terms of continuing to fund this. If we could go year upon year with one-day collection events, that could be quite good.
I think I really liked the part about including some green infrastructure into the stormwater management plan. I think some river gardens,
Rain garden.
Rain garden, thank you. Blanking here, and bioswales and all sorts of those kinds of diversion things are great to keep in mind. I'm really excited looking at all the vacant lots for hopefully by next annual report, that number will go down, at least 500 some trees coming, or is there more with some other donations too?
We got a donation to plant, what was that? Nearly $100,000 donation. I think that was 200 trees approximately. And then the city, that's on top of the sort of annual amount of tree planting that the city is funding. Yeah, I mean, it's really phenomenal, the donations that the city's received from residents for tree planting.
And the Lumpkin grant too, right? And that can be about 500 and 200 from the donation.
I think that was 50.
Oh yeah, it was $5,500 trees. That was it.
Yeah. So, these are some nice little jumps with some outside money. I hope to get ourselves into a problem where we need to really think about maintenance. Street trees are essential urban infrastructure, and like all infrastructure, they require maintenance. And so when we prune those trees, I think the best practice is on a 7-year cycle. When we prune those trees on a proper cycle, they're healthier longer. They drop less branches during storms, which then, has our crews scrambling around picking up limbs instead of filling potholes and that sort of thing. It's just everything's better when we can do that proactive cyclical maintenance. And if we start dramatically expanding our infrastructure in terms of street trees, which we want, we need to just think about making sure we have proper maintenance funding as well.
One more for me and then I'll stop. This is, I imagine, shared publicly, right? Is that on the SAC or the city sustainability website?
It's posted on the SAC meeting page, but we haven't posted it anywhere else. We want to get some feedback and then take draft off of it and share it with city council and publish it.
And then it will be on city.
It'll be on the sustainability website page. So it's just Urbana, Illinois city.us/sustainability.
I'm excited for others to see it as well. I appreciate consolidating all of those things into a nice report.
Couple comments on it. Solar UC 5.0 is not in this report.
Oh, as a sidebar comment.
As any comment. There's no mention of solar in the report.
Well, we had Geo to talk about, so.
I like the emphasis on geothermal because it's an exciting new program. In edit, I would recommend adding back in that solar UC is still going on. Some significant progress was made around contracting for the landfill solar project for Solar for All. We might add something about that in there if it's not there. And then let's see here. Was there anything? I mean, 2020 was sort of like a special year in terms of like the pandemic and pandemic response, and then like resilience in the face of the pandemic. So is there anything I don't know, mentioning something about the pandemic and resilience and how operations sort of changed, or how this was a little bit of a different year and here's why. And I guess I'm wondering, like, will there be a blip when you look at the energy use in 2020 for municipal facilities? Is there going to be like a blip and a lower use and energy that's going to be attributed in the future to the pandemic and everybody working from home rather than inside of the buildings? That needs to be explained that way, rather than like, oh, we actually did this really amazing energy efficiency thing that year that didn't work. I don't know. So something along the lines of pandemic resilience and city operations regarding sustainability sort of changing might be an interesting paragraph.
There's a brief note about COVID-19 and just the introductory paragraph.
Mm-hmm.
There's space on that page, so I could say a little more. In the city facilities greenhouse gas emissions chart, clearly there is a decline in 2020 and probably attributable to less people being in the office. So we can probably add some content in that introductory paragraph.
That part of that facilities change too wouldn't that be the building closing? I forget what it's called now, the city.
Right.
What is it called? The hangout.
Oh, is it that downtown space?
Yeah.
Is that what you're thinking of? The Civic Center?
Oh, Civic Center. I think that happened before 2020 calendar year, though.
The numbers are from 18 to 20, so it would be there, I think.
Good report. I think those were my comments. Thank you. Oh, one more. We've spent a lot of time as the SAC talking about diversity, equity, justice, and inclusion. It might be nice to add that into the report in some way, that, you know, significant amount of direction is coming from the SAC to staff on equity and equity issues for our community, leading towards new prioritizations and new efforts that make our community more resilient and equitable for people who live here.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea to include that in the report, and the kind of general planning, and also what you mentioned earlier of having connections with the city. You know, I think that's a great idea to meet with the mayor, and, you know, we can do a presentation at city council anytime as well, even just an update of here's what we added, you know, changed our bylaws, here's what we're thinking. I think especially looking ahead, I hope that there will be a lot of opportunities in the infrastructure to address some of these things with JEDI goals and sustainability. The new budget's supposed to have an extra $1 million for equity infrastructure. And I think there's, a lot of possibilities with that. And I would love to keep that in mind. And, if we can have a little influence, that's a great push.
So I think there's probably enough edits here that I'll want to make the edits, email it out to the commission, and you all can respond to me individually. And if everyone says, yeah, that looks right, looks good, then I'll probably go ahead and finalize this, call it complete, and put it in city council packet before we meet again. If people are uncomfortable with the changes, then I'll hold off and we'll discuss again at the next SAC meeting.
Could we try and get edits and from you and then us to send changes back to you within the next 2 weeks?
Sure.
Okay. All right. Any other questions or comments on the annual report? Okay, not hearing any. Thanks, Scott, for the report. Nice work, and it looks good. Looking forward to the edits. All right. I will just say, does anyone have any announcements that they want to share this evening before we adjourn?
Want to just, if we could readdress our July meeting,
Yes. Yes. Right.
especially if we're thinking of inviting like the comprehensive plan people and all of that.
Okay. So July 6th is, well, obviously that's a Tuesday. Sunday the 4th is the holiday, and I don't know what people's schedules are in terms of, what are your preferences on canceling or moving the meeting?
Can we ask if people, are some people unavailable on the 6th? I'm
Yes.
available on the 6th, so that's my side of it.
Jess is not, I believe.
Jess is not.
Also, I was wondering if we have the option to still do remote, especially if we're thinking of like a live document screen sharing type thing. That seems to make a lot more sense remote, because even if we are in person on separate laptops, we'll have to screen share on the TV what we're doing. And so I didn't know if we're required to have to go back in person immediately, or if we can decide to do at least another meeting remotely, or how that works.
I'll have to ask, open meetings experts in the city, but I think that there is a requirement that the meeting is held in public, that members attend in person. And then there's I remember some language for some particular situations. I believe it was traveling for work. I think it was the language. A person was allowed to call in. Back in the old days, you could call in. Now we have video technology, and a person would video in. But we'll have to look at that, and I'll follow up with an email. But my recollection is it's you have to be in person. If we get into the next phase of the recovery,
Which we're still not certain about, or that we will certainly.
No, we're not certain about, but I expect it.
Oh, well, wait, can I just have our board vote that on the next meeting that this board votes in this meeting to continue to have the SAC meeting be remote in January?
No,
And why not?
because I think state law requires the meetings to be in public, and that this Zoom environment was actually a state statute passed as an exception.
Okay, I guess I can't
In
supersede
public
state
and
law.
in person. Yeah.
So can we, if we do work on like a live document thing in person, is there a way we can still screen share or do that on CUTV and whatnot?
Yes.
I suspect so.
Yeah, we can have one person be sharing their screen, but the rest of us will have the link and they'll just see the changes in live time that people working in their own personal laptop space will work on.
So we would need to bring a laptop.
Bring a laptop with you. They do have some here that may be able to be borrowed if you don't have a laptop.
So the date issue though is Jess the only one who's busy or out that day?
I'm here. It sounds like everybody else is here.
Well, then my question would be,
I think she's having trouble with
are you here?
There you go.
Me? Oh, I definitely am out. That would be like, because I'm going to be in Tennessee. So if it was remote, I could probably make it happen, but there's just going to be no way for me to be
But like,
there.
are you just gone that 1 week?
Yeah, just I'm on family vacation that week. So the week after would be fine.
How do folks' calendars look like? First of all, Scott, the second Tuesday of the month, what is on the calendar? And would it be possible for us to meet in the council chambers at this time?
I can take a look in past experience when we try and change the time of the month. It just gets worse in terms of people's schedule on the calendar. But let me take a look at the city council chambers calendar.
Can we also look at June 29? Which is a
Well, then we would just
Thursday?
be into, oh, that's interesting.
I'm okay with whatever.
I feel bad having you all having to change the date for me. So I would still make the jam board if you want to still have it that day. I guess we are also missing a couple people, so that's maybe a layer. I don't know.
June 29, the council chambers appears to be open. July 13th, there appears to be a meeting that should end at 6:30.
Does anyone have a preference for the 29th or for, does anyone have a preference between the two?
I do have a preference for the 29th if we could. Just a preference.
Yeah, I think either way is fine with me. I think we could also alternatively keep the date and just move the agenda item to the next meeting. Although I'd like to address it sooner than later, but we could still have our other agenda items and the comp plan discussion. And as much as, we would love to have you be a part of it, I think I'm down to reschedule too, but just throwing it out as another option.
Do we have any notes on what agenda items we do want to address at the next meeting? Are we supposed to invite anybody? I'm sorry that I don't have that in front of me.
But we were thinking about inviting
Comp plan.
That's all that I know of.
That might give folks a little more time to work on the gym board, see if it's done. Tell y'all what, because we are wanting to invite folks from the comprehensive plan, let's check with them and see if they're available on the 6th or if they've got family vacation stuff happening. I don't know if anyone already talked to them about that schedule.
I think they said they're tentatively available, but I don't know. It might be the other Tuesdays as well. I don't know.
Okay, so I think then, so going forward, we'll have Scott reach out to, I'm terrible with names, with comprehensive plan folks and see what dates they're available. And we'll send communication about whether or not we're going to move up the meeting by 1 week, push it back a week, or keep it the same. Okay. All
So
right.
then I'll just still work on getting the Jamboard done before all of that. So then we just have it and then it's just ready to go for whenever we have time for it.
All right. Thank you so much, Jess.
Absolutely.
Okay. Without any other further business for the SAC meeting tonight, I call this meeting adjourned.